Sarah J. Maas is about to be on Call Her Daddy. I can't. We better be getting an announcement. Oh, don't look at my reflection in the mirror. I'm about to get in the shower and listen to part of this interview. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. And then I've got laundry to fold. After that, we're gonna have to have a little debrief because oh my gosh. Good morning, everybody. It is the next day. I did finish listening to the entire Call Her Daddy podcast last night with Sarah J. Maas, and I ended up watching also the last episode of Bridgerton. Now, I really enjoyed this Bridgerton season. I didn't know how I felt about the very ending, but I still am happy, I'm satisfied with it. And when we come back to that Call Her Daddy episode, we got so much information, but at the same time, we didn't get a lot of questions answered. We do know when we're gonna get the next ACOTAR book, and there's actually gonna be 3 new ACOTAR books within the next year-ish. The first one is going to be coming out in 2026 on October 27th, and then the second one will be in 2027 on January 12th. And then there is a third book. She said she's still actually finishing that one, so the date is to be announced. She has not said when that one will be out yet, but all 3 of those are part of the same story. She said that when she was writing, it just ended up being so much story to tell that she was like, this is just gonna be its own 3 books. It's not its own separate series, it's not a trilogy, but the story of who this couple is going to be, because she did not say. I'm hoping it's going to be Elaine and Lucian. I know there are Elaine and Azriel fans out there. I want her to be with Lucian. I love Lucian. So it's seeming like their story is going to take a long time, or whoever the next book is about. I also could definitely see it being kind of about Elaine and Lucian with this will they won't they happening with Azriel, and then the Azriel and Moore relationship or something happening between the 2 of them. But I think the third one might end up being a novella. We will see. I'm still excited either way. Also, sorry if you can hear it. I've got water warming up in the kettle, so that might go off here in a second. I did start a new book today, and I'm really, really excited. I am starting Just Friends by Haley Pham. I am hoping this book is going to be everything I need it to be, and that I can kind of get into it and get through it quickly, just because I've been having a hard time reading lately. I don't really feel the desire to read. I want to do other things like crafting and painting and coloring and all that, which is great and it's fine and that's wonderful, but I do know I love reading, so I wanted to find something that can help me get back into that and help me reignite that spark that I usually feel when I find a good book. With me being a big fan of Haley's, I'm really excited, and I'm happy for her to have her first debut novel. I've actually been watching her videos since 2018, 2017, somewhere around that time. So almost 10 years, which is crazy, especially when you think about the fact that me and her are about the same age, me and Ryan are about the same age. So it's pretty cool how successful she is and how everything is going for her. Then I also have friends who all are going to be reading this as well, and who also watch her videos. So that's pretty exciting. Oh my gosh. I am unfortunately actually a little bit sick. I've got a scratchy throat, scratchy voice, and I don't really have any other symptoms other than just a little bit of congestion and a little bit of a cough. So I'm hoping this is nothing major, but I'm making myself some tea right now. This is actually my last bag of chai. which is sad because this is my favorite. But I'm making some tea to kind of help soothe my throat. It is 10:25 right now, and I've been up about 3-ish hours. Don't really have anything planned for today that's concrete, so maybe we will just hang out here at the house, chill, maybe go outside, and let's see if we can get some reading done. But while we do that, let's go ahead and make our little cozy drink, because if there is anything that I love, it is a cozy drink while reading a new book. I've got my daughter set up in her room right now playing. She has her Tony box going, and we kind of rearranged some stuff in her room yesterday so she can see more of her toys. So she is in there playing on her own right now, doing a little independent play. So I'm gonna take this time, have my tea, read my book, and I'll give you guys my thoughts on this as I get into it. Just about halfway into the book. I've only read maybe 10 or so pages tonight, and this is the next day, by the way. So I haven't gotten a ton of reading done today, but I've just had this reoccurring thought come up as I'm reading, and that is that I keep coming across several big words, very scholarly words, strong words, and sometimes they feel a little bit too much. And it's not even that I dislike a big word or a complex word. I just feel like compared to the rest of the writing, they don't seem to fit in all the time. And then they also just don't feel natural coming from our main character. Those always catch me off guard. But I'm not complaining, and I don't really have any complaints about the book, about the story. I don't have a lot of feelings really towards our love interest yet, and we're 50% of the way through. But I've still got half the book to go, and that's a lot of time to let me make up my mind. So I'm ready to see what starts happening between the two of them and where that goes, because right now it's honestly not been much between them. Just a couple of interactions with little sprinkles that haven't done much for me. Just Friends this morning, and I'm kind of still putting my thoughts together. I don't know what I'm gonna rate it. I didn't love the story. There were aspects of it that I thought were okay. And I want to say this too real quick, I guess, before I give more of a review on the book, but I am a huge Haley Pham fan. I have been watching her videos since I was 19 maybe, or 20, but since 2017. So I love her, and this is nothing against her. This is just me stating that I did not enjoy this book. And if she is proud of her book and she loves her book, that's great, because writing a book is hard. But for me, it just wasn't my favorite. I felt like there was so much that we weren't really seeing for ourselves when it came to our main character's relationship, both with our male main character, as well as her relationships that she has with her friends and her relationships that she has with her great aunt. And grief is a big thing, like a big topic that is dealt with in this book, but we don't see a lot about that relationship that is causing her so much grief. We are more just told rather than us seeing it, so therefore it felt very surface level. I didn't feel connected to our main character. I didn't feel connected to really any of the characters. If anything, I feel like the relationships between her and her friends might have been where we received some like depth. And that is probably because we were told how they met. We were told what they were like in college. We were told how their relationships are changing now that they're graduated college. And we also get to see kind of their dynamics while she's dealing with grief, her dynamics in person with them. So we get to see the most, I would say, out of those relationships. And the relationship between her and our male main character, I just felt like really flat. I feel like there was a huge miscommunication that happened between them at one point, in the past, and they never saw each other after that. There wasn't ever a moment where we were like, oh, that's the big defining moment that caused this issue and why they split apart. I was very confused as to how exactly and when exactly it was that they stopped seeing each other in the past. I just don't understand a lot of what was happening, and I think that really just has to do with the fact that it wasn't fleshed out and as detailed as it needed to be. There was even mention of how when her great aunt died, she didn't like what it was that her great aunt's friends were saying about her because that wasn't the person that she knew. So there wasn't a storyline that we followed where she was discovering things about her aunt that she never knew, and now she felt this greater connection to her. That's not the route we went, but it like started to go that way and then stepped back. And then we would step into the romance and step back, step into talking about grief and relationships and step back. So everything just didn't feel deep. It felt, like I said earlier, it felt very surface level. I have seen where some people in the past who got like arcs of this book, they had said that this almost felt like fan fiction of her life. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, because I think that we all put a lot of our own experiences into books, and I do think I see her in this story, especially with what I know of her, having been watching her videos for so long, and her relationships with her husband, her relationships with her family. So seeing those little things sprinkled throughout here don't necessarily make me feel like this is a Haley Pham fan fiction. It just makes me feel like maybe the experiences that she has had and that she has put into this aren't as delved into, or maybe she wasn't comfortable delving into them as much as she probably should have in order for this to get the details that it needed so that we could feel connected to the characters. I did mention earlier about some of the word choices that are put throughout, and me and my friends were kind of talking about this a little bit, where I do enjoy when there is a good word put into a book, where I'm like, ooh, good word, what does that mean? And I have to look it up. I really appreciate that. But in this instance, the big words were thrown in there and they didn't seem to match the rest of the writing. So these big words were being used, and our main character is kind of supposed to be this intellectual author type, but nothing about her screams that until she throws in a big word, and it just feels out of place. Every time I came across one of these big words, these $5 words, whatever it is anyone wants to call them, I didn't feel like they were natural. They didn't feel like they were the word that our main character would have just used in casual conversation, because that's what it felt like she was doing, was having a casual conversation with us in this story. It felt like she was looking for the biggest, hardest, most complicated word to use in describing something. But with that said, I do think she had a few moments where her metaphors and her similes were really well done, and I feel like those expressed emotion very well for us. But I also just feel like our characters weren't fleshed out. I didn't feel like they had gone through really any growth from the past point to the current point, except for what we are told, because we don't see any of that. We don't see any of that for any of the characters. And even the great aunt, who we're supposed to feel a connection to because she's going through grief, I didn't feel any connection there. It was almost as if you were being told the story of a friend whose friend went through this. And so you're not getting any of the details that actually are emotion evoking, but instead are just summaries. I feel like I'm kind of saying the same thing over and over. Everything was just very flat. But this is Haley's debut novel, so I am still debating on how I am going to rate this, because for it being a debut novel and me knowing she has never written a book before, me knowing who she is and how she is, I feel like Haley comes across in this book very well. I did understand the story. I just feel like it wasn't fleshed out the way it should have been. Okay, I'm actually editing this video and I realized I never finished giving my thoughts on Just Friends or even like closed out this video. So what I'm going to do instead of trying to just go back and remember what all I said is I'm going to read you guys my Goodreads review and let you guys know what star rating I ended up landing on. So at the time that I was writing this review, I wasn't sure what I was going to rate the book, but I do think I'm going to land on a 2.5 star rating, and that would be because I didn't hate it. I think it had a lot of potential, but it just wasn't fleshed out as much as I think it should have been. But my review, I wrote, I want to preface my review with a bit of information about me and my love for Haley and her videos that I have been watching since about 2017. I have said to my husband on multiple occasions that Haley and Ryan seem like the kinds of people we could both easily be friends with if we met. Our personalities, interests, and mine and Haley's book tastes are very similar. Maybe that is a bit parasocial of me, but it is true. Simply put, I'm a fan. I even had OG Girly Pop merch back when she first released it, and one of my favorite books is the same as Haley's. Now, as a book lover and someone who reads quite a few books, I don't consider myself a harsh critic, because a book can typically receive a high rating from me as long as I had a good time reading it and I felt connected to our characters in some way. But in Just Friends, I didn't ever have that moment of connection happen. In the beginning of the book, we get a brief little introduction and history on our FMC and her relationship with her great aunt. And though the relationship is brought up all throughout the story, I don't feel like I ever felt the deep connection that the two supposedly shared. The relationships felt very surface level, even with the history we are given that is meant to expand upon the emotions and the connection we should feel towards each one. Our FMC and our MMC never really had a breakup moment like you would typically see in a miscommunication or in a second chance romance. They just simply stopped speaking due to certain incidents that occurred and never saw any form of closure or anything for 4 years. Their relationship was more similar to that of one where someone had died than one where they had a fight and never made up and never actually ended things. I've seen people say this felt like Ryan and Haley fanfic, and personally, I do not think that this is the case. Even as someone who has been a fan and follower of hers for nearly 10 years, I just think this is an extreme case of writing what you know and writing what you have experienced. Our FMC does face a lot of challenges and goes through trauma that I know Haley can closely relate to, and I believe her inclusion of that was her way of telling a story that felt real and authentic. But I think in some ways it may have stunted the writing process. The feelings and emotions that our FMC deals with, like grief, love, heartbrokenness, and self-doubt, all felt, again, like shallow interpretations of each one. Usually, these expressions of emotion in a story are what really make us feel connected and feel for a character and what they have been through or are experiencing. But in this story, it felt like a lot of telling us what they have been through and how they feel rather than letting us feel that alongside them. The story felt very anticlimactic and flat. We are supposedly in a beautiful beachside town that is a hidden gem and kept secret because of how beautiful it is. But I never really felt that sense of awe that typically would come from reading about a place that is supposedly so beautiful. I think there is maybe a single paragraph on page 2 that consists of 2 sentences that describe the town, and that just wasn't enough for me to feel it. I won't continue to harp because eventually it starts to feel like I hated the book, and that wasn't 100% the case. I just feel like this story needed more work before publishing. The characters and the background needed more detail and backstory added to them, and there needed to feel like there was more plot. Because once her aunt passed, there didn't feel like there was anything keeping our FMC in town other than her own struggle with grief. Haley, congratulations on your debut. I will continue to be a fan of your work online and honestly would still probably read whatever you wrote in the future to see your progression if you chose to keep writing. Hopefully that doesn't come across mean. I do want it to be an honest review. I don't want to let my feelings about Haley as someone who, enjoys her content. I don't want that to skew my opinion, especially since, I did for the most part not enjoy it that much. But I did have a couple of positive thoughts and a couple of things to say since this is a debut. But yeah, that's just where I'm going to leave off on that. But thank you guys so much for watching this video. I know it was a little bit of a reading vlog, a little bit of a daily vlog, and kind of a reaction vlog to the SJM news. But I thought I'd put all these book thoughts and book reactions into one vlog together. So I hope you guys enjoyed it and thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.